When you're going through change and you're introducing change, don't try to do too much at one time. Keep it simple, have your goals, get your message, make sure that everybody understands, and don't spread it out too much. All right, now I see you looking at me. We're not really doing that much. So how much is too much? Well, chunky peanut butter. Just think chunky peanut butter. So by the time it got to be Christmas, by the time we got around to December, right, we still had a problem that we had members all throughout the organization that didn't know each other, people that had been there for years, people that had become part of Brain Hunter through a series of acquisitions, and they still hung out with, or were in the clique with, or spent time with, the people that were part of the organization that they were from, without integrating into the rest of the organization. And that's not the kind of company that we wanted to be. So when it came around to Christmas time, and we were sitting around with a group of individuals talking about what are we going to do for Christmas, what about a Christmas party? And so, well, a Christmas party in the past, don't record this part, in the past, executives that would have a Christmas party, they go out to a country club, and they would have a lavish dinner at a country club, because they got to be members for the next year, right? So they would have a big, lavish dinner at a country club, and everybody that felt comfortable with that would dress up in their formal attire and their gowns and go with their significant other to this lavish dinner at the country club. But needless to say, most of the office didn't go. They didn't feel comfortable. That's not who we were. So when we talked about having a big, fancy dinner at a country club, that idea got off the table pretty quick. We said, that's not who we are. Then we started talking about going out to different places. Let's go to Shoeless Joe's. Let's go to Boston Pizza. Let's go someplace where we're going to have an open bar. That's who some of us are. Yeah. I'm just kidding. Everybody know Rob? Yeah. Actually, he's one of the hardest working people I know, so he deserves to have a drink. Yeah, that's true. So we talked about different places we could go, where we could relax, and where people could be themselves, right? And after we had a long discussion about different things that we could do, we sat down with a group of individuals. Again, that lovely young lady from HR, a very gentle heart, and Kim, who's over here with us tonight, Kim Jacko, who's now in charge of our marketing group, and another gentleman who's in our finance group. And we sat down and said, we need to do something completely different. And by the way, I should probably preface this as well, something else that you probably didn't know, but the night before I watched the movie Scrooged. That really hit home, right? And I was scared to death I was going to get visited by a ghost of some old guy with a whiskey glass and a golf ball stuck in his head. We need to do something that really represents who our organization is. We need to do something that's special for our people. So we said, forget about the country clubs, forget about all these other things. We're going to do something called the 12 Days of Christmas. And that was an important change management inside of our organization. We introduced the 12 Days of Christmas. The 12 Days of Christmas was really a very simple premise. Starting the beginning of December, and for the first 12 days of the month of working days, of the month of December, we had a different contest every single day. We went around just before the beginning of December, and they went around and they had everybody draw numbers from a hat. Right? And they said, draw a number from a hat, and that's going to be the team that you're on. We're going to have 12 teams. We're going to have competition for 12 days. Right? And on those 12 days, we're going to have a different team's going to win, and every team is going to have 5 to 6 members on the team. Right? And the competition is going to last for 15 minutes. So the sum total of the amount of time that it took away from our productivity as a workforce was 3 hours. For any individual, it was about 15 minutes. But what happened in that 15 minutes was magic. Because they went around and they put all these different numbers in hats. Now I'll also tell you, I'll acknowledge, I'll share, I'll confess to something. These random numbers were sort of fixed. Right? Everybody had to draw a number from a hat, but we had more than one hat. And the reason they did that is they went around with one hat to one department, went into a recruiting department and said, draw a number from a hat. They took another hat, went over to a finance department to draw a number from a hat. They went over to a project management office to draw a number from a hat. Went over to somebody and said, draw a number from a hat. And the reason that they did that is when it was done, you didn't get one team with everybody from one department or everybody from one group. But everybody was shocked to find out when they pulled these numbers out, I don't know anybody on my team. Yeah. Isn't that a coincidence? Yeah. Luck of the draw. But watching the people run around, and they spent the first day after they had the numbers, and we told them, tomorrow you have to come in, you've got to get together all the members on your team, and you have to pick one representative of your team to come in tomorrow to find out what the challenge is going to be. So they had to walk around the office looking at nameplates, looking at names, and trying to figure out who everybody was. So they had to walk around and go look at everybody and introduce themselves to one another and get themselves together collectively as a team with a group of individuals that didn't know each other. And then in that time period, they had to elect somebody as their spokesperson, as their leader from within the team, to go and represent them, to come and find out what the challenge was going to be. Now, the first day was very simple. The challenge was decorating an office. Everybody got a certain amount of money. Go out, you have to pick a place in the office, decorate it, and there's going to be a judge. Second day, the challenge, 15-minute challenge, was charades. Okay? The third day, 15-minute challenge was Pictionary. Your team, however many charades you got, Pictionary that you got, one of the challenges was stockings, Christmas stockings that were closed with things inside, and they had to feel and try and figure out what the things were inside the stocking, and however many you got right. Every day, people competed to get points. The laughter that went on inside of those rooms, and the people that bonded together, that got to know one another, in 12 days, even before the 12 days was over. Kim can vouch for this, but before the end of the first week, team members were going out to lunch together, going out to coffee together. They were getting together and plotting about how they're going to get prepared for the next challenge. Right? They didn't know each other 2 weeks before. Right? They all worked together. Now, as an organization, understanding that we had all of these different isolated silos within our organization, how efficient could we possibly be as an organization with all these multiple different silos that didn't talk to each other, didn't know each other, didn't care about each other, and didn't get along. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, we are this oiled machine with people running together, people laughing together, something had to get from one place to another, and they knew all the people involved in the chain to make things happen, and they liked each other. We went out to coffee, had lunch, hung out together, and created friendships that have lasted throughout. That was change management. For myself, as you notice, I don't like to talk about myself very much. For myself, I came here from California. Right? I keep convincing myself those are palm trees, right? Yeah. Actually, the president of Zylog, and true story, the president of Zylog called me from New Jersey, and he was outside in his driveway, and he's John. He said, "How you doing?" I could hear he was on a Bluetooth, right? He said, and he was, "John, how are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing very good." His name was, "I'm doing great," said Arshan. I said, "How are you doing today?" He said, "John, you sound like you're out of breath." I said, "Well, I'm up on top of the ladder." I said, "I'm trimming the palm tree in my front yard." "What are you doing?" He said, "You're what?" I said, "I'm wearing a pair of shorts, flip-flops, and a tank top." I said, "I'm trimming the palm tree out in my front yard." "What are you doing?" "I'm shoveling snow and I like it." He said, "I have to, so I might as well like it." He said, "John, how would you like to move up in the organization?" "Really? Up to Canada." Yeah. I'm originally I was born in Florida, and I moved around every 4 years. My father was in the Navy, and we lived in IBM, which we thought stood for I've been moved. So we moved every 4 years. And so my hometown is pretty much anywhere on the East Coast or the West Coast of the USA, and I've been fortunate enough to be up in Canada since a little bit before the acquisition, I was part of a team that came up here to study before we made a bid on the acquisition. And actually the part of the study that I was responsible for predominantly is we tried to look at the finances and look at the books. And we can't tell. This is just a mess. I said, let's do this. So put together a task force, and my job, I got the phone call. I was in Houston, Texas, and I was packed to go visit a client. I was packed with a suitcase with clothes for 2 days for Houston, Texas, which was at that time about 35 degrees. Right? I got the phone call, asked to come up to Toronto. When I landed, it was about -7, right? This isn't funny. And tried studying the books and doing the financial analysis, and they said, so, tell us, what do you think? I said, you can't. I said, this is just a mess. I said, you can't tell anything from this. I said, we don't know if it's a good acquisition, bad acquisition. You don't know whether the bid is just, it's a complete mess. I can understand how part of how they got in trouble because the books are terrible. I said, but here's what we'll do. Give us a list of the clients, and we had to have a third party listen in on our phone calls. And we were able to get in touch with 80% of the clients. We couldn't get 100, but we were able to get in touch with 80% of the clients. We had a third party listening on the phone call to make sure that we weren't trying to solicit or steal clients. And I said, look, I have one question to start with, maybe a second question based on your answer to the first one. It's really simple. I said, you've read about this company. You know they filed for bankruptcy. You read the stuff that's on the internet. You see the executives are writing things back and forth to each other. You see all the noise that's out there. It's terrible. Why are you doing business with them? That's my question. The answer that I got back for all of the clients I was able to get in touch with, all 80%, right? 100% of the answers were, I like the people I work with. I don't want it to change. I like these people. I've got a relationship with. And I said, thank you. Based on your answer, my only other question, can you give me their names? You say that you like working with these people. You say that you like the person you have a relationship with. You want to keep doing business with them. What's their name? And one by one, I wrote down the names. And as I said, we made job offers to 95% of the people in Brain Hunter, and every one of them were on that list of names. And that's where it came from. So I came here most recently from California. I was an executive at Toshiba America Consumer Products, Toshiba America Information Systems. I worked at Toshiba for over 20 years. I left Toshiba to go form my own company where I was doing executive coaching and human capital management. Okay. At the time that I left Toshiba, it was because there were a number of layoffs at Toshiba. Okay. They were going through some financial difficulty, and there were a lot of really good executives with 20 and 30 years of experience that couldn't find a job. I left Toshiba to create my own organization, to bring all of those people together, to go out to other organizations that had young management and start introducing these experienced management executives to coach and train the younger management, which was a great business model for about 1.5 years until all of my staff got hired. I've learned from that. After that, I went to work for another organization called Dex Data Exchange, which was a logistics company, logistics provider, worked with a lot of different clients, and Zylog got in touch with me and asked if I would help them to design some software, which I did for them for fun in my spare time. And after about 8 months of doing that, I needed more time out. I said, make a deal with you. I said, why don't you bring me on full time? I'll quit from here. And that's how I ended up at Zylog. So that's the long and short. It's not a very glamorous story, right? I started at Toshiba. I started in the warehouse, right? I left as the director of operations, but my job there was working in the warehouse and packing parts to ship out parts that were used to fix TVs. And I took it because I didn't want to work in an office. I didn't want to be stuck behind a desk, right? Yeah, joke's on me. Yeah. Now every once in a while somebody says, how'd you get that tan? I'm like, window seat on the airplane. Thank you very much.